The interview was supposed to be routine. A few questions about swing speed, a few questions about the upcoming majors, nothing controversial. But Bryson DeChambeau had other plans. Midway through, he looked into the camera and said what no active player has ever said. The PGA Tour has been running a secret shadow system, hidden fines, quiet suspensions, a disciplinary log the public will never see. I have the receipts. Within hours, the clip had millions of views. The tour's legal team scrambled. Commissioner Monahan faced the biggest crisis of his career. Players who had been terrified for years suddenly saw a crack of light. What did DeChambeau actually expose? Why is the tour desperate to bury this story? This is the full story they don't want you to hear. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell. The story begins not on a golf course, but in a law office in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, just a few miles from the PGA Tour's worldwide headquarters. It was March of 2023. A group of 11 PGA Tour players had gathered in secret. They were not there to discuss tournament strategy or equipment deals. They were there to discuss something far more sensitive, the tour's internal disciplinary system. According to notes from that meeting obtained by Golfix, the players were alarmed by a trend they had noticed over the previous 5 years. Fines were increasing. Suspensions were becoming more common. And most troubling of all, players who spoke publicly about these punishments were being punished again for the act of speaking. A cycle of silence had been created, and it was enforced through fear. One player at that meeting, whose name we are withholding at his request, said, "I have been fined 4 times in 3 years. 3 of those fines were for things I said in private conversations that were later leaked to the tour. I have no idea who leaked them. The tour refuses to tell me. They just send a letter and take the money from my earnings. I have never had a hearing. I have never been allowed to appeal." Another player added, "I know a guy who was suspended for 2 weeks last season. The tour told him that if he told anyone, not just the media, but anyone, including his own wife, the suspension would be doubled. So he told everyone he had. A family emergency. He missed 2 tournaments. He lost nearly $300,000. He never said a word to anyone outside that room. That is the culture we are living in." Bryson DeChambeau was not at that meeting, but he heard about it within days. According to sources close to him, he became obsessed with exposing the system. DeChambeau has always been different, a physicist on the course, a truth-teller off it, and he decided that someone had to break the silence. The first public hint came in July 2024. DeChambeau gave an interview saying, "There are things happening inside the tour that would shock the fans, things that would make them question everything." Most ignored it. They thought he was venting. He was warning. Now the warning has become an exposé. On March 26th, DeChambeau sat for an interview with a small golf outlet. The interview was scheduled for 20 minutes. It ran for 47. In the final 12 minutes, he named names. He gave dates. He described specific fines and suspensions. And he promised documentary evidence. The PGA Tour's response came within hours. The PGA Tour has always operated with the highest standards of integrity. Mr. DeChambeau's claims are inaccurate. The statement did not deny the secret log. It did not deny hidden fines. It simply called his claims inaccurate without explaining why. Within 24 hours, DeChambeau posted his first piece of evidence, a letter from the tour's legal department fining him $150,000 for a private text message. The letter did not quote the message. It did not explain why it was derogatory. It did not offer an appeal. It simply demanded payment. DeChambeau captioned it, "This is just the beginning." To understand why DeChambeau's exposé has struck such a nerve, you must first understand Commissioner Monahan. When Monahan took over in 2017, he promised transparency and player empowerment. But according to interviews with current and former tour employees, Monahan delivered something very different. Under previous Commissioner Tim Finchem, the player code of conduct's broad powers were used sparingly. Fines were rare, suspensions were rarer. Players were given private conversations before any punishment. Under Monahan, that changed dramatically. According to internal documents obtained by Golfix, disciplinary actions increased by 340% between 2017 and 2025. The average fine increased by 210%. Suspensions without public announcement increased by 400%. One former tour employee described the culture shift in stark terms. Under Tim, players were partners. Under Jay, players became assets. Assets need to be managed and controlled. Assets that become liabilities need to be disciplined. I saw files that would make your stomach turn. The tour knows everything about these guys, their medical history, their finances, their marriages, and they use that information to keep them in line. The confidential disciplinary log is the physical manifestation of this control system. According to 3 sources who have seen portions of it, the log is a password-protected spreadsheet maintained by the tour's legal department. It contains columns for player name, date of incident, nature of violation, fine amount, suspension length, and commissioner's disposition. One source described scrolling through approximately 200 entries. I saw names that would make your jaw drop. Major champions, Ryder Cup heroes, some fined multiple times, some suspended without the public ever knowing. The amounts ranged from $5,000 to $500,000. The reasons ranged from critical social media post to failure to attend mandatory dinner to disrespectful gesture during tournament. Another source provided an even more disturbing account. The tour practices stacking fines. If a player accumulates multiple minor fines within a short period, they can be aggregated into a suspension. Because the fines themselves are secret, the player never knows a suspension is coming until the letter arrives. I saw a player who had accumulated $75,000 in fines over 18 months, the source said. Most were for things like failure to respond to a tour email within the required time frame. He was never warned. One day, a letter arrived suspending him for one tournament. He lost his spot in a major. His career never recovered. The PGA Tour has refused to comment on specific fines or the stacking practice. A spokesperson said only, "The PGA Tour's disciplinary processes are fair, transparent, and consistent with best practices." They did not answer why fines are not made public or why players are not given formal hearings. DeChambeau has his own theory. The tour wants docile players, he said. They want guys who show up, play golf, smile for the cameras, and never ask questions. They don't want leaders or rebels, so they created a secret system to punish anyone who steps out of line. And they've been running it for years because they know that if the public found out, there would be outrage. The public is now finding out, and the outrage is growing. The most damaging aspect of DeChambeau's exposé is not the fines themselves, it is the fear. The fear that keeps players silent. The fear that prevents them from speaking out even when they know they have been wronged. The fear that turns grown men into obedient children, afraid to lose everything they have worked for. Golfix has spoken to 7 current PGA Tour players who requested anonymity because they are afraid of retaliation. Their stories are remarkably consistent. Each has been fined at least once. Each believes the fine was unjustified. Each wanted to fight back, and each ultimately decided not to because the risk was too high. One player, a multiple tournament winner in his 30s, described the calculation he made after receiving a $50,000 fine for a comment during a private dinner. I was at a restaurant with 4 other guys. We were talking about a tour official. I said, "That guy doesn't know what he's doing." That was it. Within a week, the tour knew exactly what I had said. I got a letter fining me $50,000. My agent said, "If you fight this, they will audit your taxes. They will review every shot you've ever hit. They will make your life hell." So I paid. I shut up. I have hated myself every day since. Another player, a former major champion in his 40s, described being suspended for 2 weeks without any public announcement. The reason? He criticized a tournament's course setup during a press conference. He simply said, "The greens are unfair. They've lost control of them." The tour called him into a meeting the next day. A lawyer read a letter informing him of a 2-week suspension. The letter stated that if he discussed the suspension with anyone, it would be increased to 4 weeks. "I went home and told my wife I had a back injury," the player said. "I told my sponsor I needed a break. I told my caddy to say I was dealing with a family matter. I lied to everyone because I was terrified. And the worst part is, I'm not alone. I know at least a dozen guys who have done the exact same thing. We are all lying. We are all hiding. We are all pretending everything is fine while the tour quietly steals our money and our careers." DeChambeau understands this fear better than most. He was fined $150,000 for a text message. He could have paid quietly and moved on. Instead, he chose to fight. And his decision has made him a hero to some players and a pariah to others. "A lot of guys are grateful to me, but they won't say it publicly," DeChambeau said. "They text me privately. They call me at night. They tell me their stories. They thank me for doing what they wish they could do. But when the cameras are on, they pretend nothing is happening. I don't blame them. I understand the fear. But I also believe that fear is exactly what the tour wants." The question now is whether DeChambeau's courage will inspire others. Several players have reportedly been discussing a coordinated response. A group of players would release their own disciplinary letters simultaneously, overwhelming the tour's ability to retaliate. Safety in numbers. The more players who speak, the harder it becomes for the tour to punish any single one of them. For now, the golf world waits. The silence is breaking. And Bryson DeChambeau is just getting started. The fallout from DeChambeau's exposé has been swift and brutal. Within 48 hours of his interview, 3 more players had anonymously leaked their own fine letters to golf journalists. The floodgates were opening, and the PGA Tour, which had spent years perfecting its system of secret punishments, suddenly found itself completely exposed. One of the leaked letters revealed a $120,000 fine for a player who had simply failed to attend a mandatory sponsored dinner due to a family emergency. The player had provided documentation of the emergency. The tour fined him anyway. Another letter showed a $75,000 fine for a player who had made a negative gesture after missing a putt during a televised tournament. The gesture was never shown on broadcast. No fan saw it, but a tour official saw it from the scoring trailer. The fine was issued the next day. The most shocking leak came from a veteran player who had been on tour for over 15 years. He revealed that he had been suspended for 1 week in 2022. The reason? He had told a reporter that the tour's drug testing policy was inconsistent and poorly communicated. The tour considered this conduct detrimental to the integrity of the tour. The suspension was never announced. The player missed 1 tournament. He told no one. DeChambeau has promised to release more documents. In a social media post on March 29th, he wrote, "I have 3 more letters from other players who have authorized me to share them. I also have a partial screenshot of the confidential disciplinary log. And I have a recording of a phone call between a player and a tour official discussing a secret suspension. I will release everything on April 2nd. The tour can't hide anymore. The PGA Tour's legal department has been working around the clock. According to a source inside the tour, they have considered filing a restraining order against DeChambeau to prevent him from releasing more documents. But lawyers have advised against it, arguing that a restraining order would only draw more attention to the scandal. Commissioner Monahan has gone silent. After his initial statement dismissing DeChambeau's claims as inaccurate, he has not spoken publicly. His staff has canceled all his scheduled media appearances for the coming week. He is reportedly holed up in his office, meeting with lawyers and the tour's board of directors. The board is divided. Some members want Monahan to fight back aggressively. They believe DeChambeau is a troublemaker who should be suspended immediately. Others want Monahan to negotiate a settlement, offering DeChambeau a reduction of his fines in exchange for his silence. A third faction believes Monahan himself is the problem and that new leadership is needed to restore trust. Meanwhile, the players are watching. Some are preparing to join DeChambeau. Others are praying the story goes away. But the story is not going away. The documents are real. The fines are real. The fear is real. And Bryson DeChambeau, love him or hate him, has done something no one else has ever done. He has forced the PGA Tour to answer for its secrets. Where does the PGA Tour go from here? The exposé delivered by Bryson DeChambeau has cracked open a door that the Tour has spent decades trying to keep closed. The question is no longer whether the Tour has a secret disciplinary system. The question is what happens now that the secret is out. There are three possible futures. Future 1. The Tour doubles down. Commissioner Monahan refuses to change anything. The disciplinary log remains secret. Fines and suspensions continue. Players who speak out are punished. The Tour hopes the controversy blows over, but this time it may not. DeChambeau has already promised to release more documents. Other players are preparing to come forward. The media is circling. A doubling down strategy would turn a scandal into a crisis. Future 2. The Tour reforms from within. Monahan announces a comprehensive review of the disciplinary system. He appoints a committee of players to oversee all future fines and suspensions. He releases a redacted version of the disciplinary log. He creates a formal appeals process. He apologizes to players who were unfairly punished. This would restore trust and neutralize the scandal. But it would also require Monahan to admit wrongdoing, something he has shown no willingness to do. Future 3. Monahan resigns. If the pressure becomes unbearable, the PGA Tour's board of directors could ask for the commissioner's resignation. A new leader would be brought in to clean house. This is the most dramatic outcome, but also the most likely if DeChambeau continues to release damaging information. Monahan has survived controversies before. The LIV golf merger backlash, accusations of favoritism. But this is different. This is about the Tour's fundamental relationship with its own players. If that relationship is broken, Monahan may be the price of repair. What will Bryson DeChambeau do next? He has promised more receipts. Golfix has learned that DeChambeau is in possession of at least 3 additional documents. Another fine letter from a different player who has authorized its release, a recording of a phone call between a player and a Tour official discussing a secret suspension, and a partial screenshot of the confidential disciplinary log itself. DeChambeau is expected to release these documents in a coordinated media event on April the 2nd. "I am not trying to destroy the PGA Tour," DeChambeau said. "I am trying to save it from itself. The Tour can be great. It can be transparent. It can treat players like partners instead of employees. But that will never happen as long as the current system exists. I am shining a light. What happens next is up to the Tour. The golf world is watching. The players are watching. The sponsors are watching. And Commissioner J. Monahan, sitting in his office in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, must now decide which future he will choose. One thing is certain. The era of secret fines and hidden suspensions is ending. Bryson DeChambeau made sure of that. Whether the PGA Tour ends it gracefully or fights to the bitter end is now the only remaining question. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell.